Hello, welcome
Hang
to the
on, hang on,
CarCast at Edmonds podcast. I'm Matt, the moderator, DeAndrea, and that guy jumping around behind you is Alistair Weaver.
That was the least slick start to a podcast ever. I just basically fell off my chair trying to get into position. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening. How are you all?
Uh, just got back from Scottsdale BarrettJackson. It's a fun event. It was a quick trip, and it's you spend the first day basically just chatting with people and catching up with people we haven't seen for a while and before you even realize there's an auction going on the whole time behind you and it's kind of cool to look at. They had some pretty good cars. I think we'll get into maybe break that down a little bit more this week with Goldberg, but um, we were talking about a week or so ago about the Corvette ZR1 and VIN number one was going up. It was going to be a charity car. We knew it was going to be a high dollar car. I was guessing that Rick Hendrik would buy it. And sure enough, he bought it. I think he's purchased pretty much all of the VIN number one charity cars, at least the GM models that have been there. I think he spent about $3.7 million. Now, of course, it's a big donation to charity. You back out the price of the car, which we said is about 175 grand, maybe 200
Yeah,
grand
probably
fully loaded.
200 grand with the carbon bits. I was gonna say, like, is that a complete tax write-off? Not that
So,
it's still not
so
a very generous thing to do, but
it would
how
be
does
the
that work?
3.7 million minus the 200 grand for the price of the car.
Oh, because that's the
So
asset value.
yeah, right. So 3.5. But GM gets the write off as well. So if I got this right, there's kind of a double dipping on the write off. So GM is donating it. So they get the write off. And then he buys the car for 3.7, backs out, let's say 200 grand, which is a great deal for that car because most people would have to pay a markup, right? So he's going, oh, I'm going to back out sticker price 200 grand, and I'm going to donate 3.5 million dollars to this charity, which he could have done anyway. He probably needs to, given how much money he makes each year.
There is a wine auction at my local school, my kids' school. It's a public school, but they're like the parent teachers thing runs a wine auction, which seemed like she said, no, you can offset it. So it's like an offset and a wine auction. So basically, it's a very expensive ticket. It's full of kids, and you can tax deduct it. So
And
like
you can
every
tax
parent,
deduct it if
so
you have a scenario where it's tax, like you could benefit from the tax deduction. If you have one deduction your whole year and it was $50 donation to the Animal Humane Society, you're probably not going to benefit from such a small deduction. So it has to make sense.
I'm not sure whether like the ethics of deducting a wine auction, but it was a good night.
Yeah. Well, look, to his credit, I believe they announced that Rick Hendrick had donated something like $50 million over his, lifetime at just BarrettJackson charity cars that he's purchased. So good on him. I mean, it's a hell of a thing. They've done a lot. Uh, all right, let me get some housekeeping out of the way. Talk about Bet Online. They're the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, to NHL and UFC, Bet Online is your number one sports betting source for the new year. Every touchdown to three-pointer and hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with the odds, the stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. So BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, so you didn't take a trip. We thought you were going to take a trip, but
Yeah,
when
it's been
the
such a
country's just getting beat up with
man.
various
It's such a
forms of
like
weather.
the start of the year. We're sitting here in California. I'm a Brit who lives in LA, like doing a rain dance, which is kind of crazy. So we're desperately waiting for rain here in LA, which finally arrived at the weekend, thank goodness. But meanwhile, I was supposed to go to New Orleans to go to NADA, which is the big dealer show, and it's like
Yeah.
5,000 dealers. I mean, this thing, I don't know what the total spend is, but it's got to be hundreds of millions of dollars. And all the flight, like, most of the flights got cancelled. Mine got cancelled. The whole thing got delayed. A lot of people didn't make it. 8 inches of snow. I don't think it snowed in New Orleans that since like somebody's going to write in and tell me I've got this wrong. But I think it was like 18 something. They've had that much snow. So it is a real shame. I mean, the money that people spend like hosting this show, it's an amazing event,
Yeah.
and it did go ahead. but we probably had a proportion of our team there. So we have a ton of people go, and so it's it was a real shame. But I stayed in LA and waited for the rain, which thankfully came at the weekend. So
We did, and in typical California fashion, the very next day after the rain, um, already we've got notifications saying the PCH is closed because of mudslides, and now it's covered in mud.
I was
So
actually pretty hairy. I was actually going out on the roads and it was raining. I was like, well, I don't fancy this much. It hasn't rained since last October.
yeah,
So
I mean we need the rain for the fires, but it just creates havoc out here. It's just been California's just getting its butt kicked up and down the street. Like it's been terrible.
I used to love racing in the rain, but that was an entirely different thing.
Yeah, you and Senna, who was better?
But also, actually, I did race at Donington where he did his famous first lap. I raced a lot in the rain. I raced a lot less successfully, but it was no, it was always fun. My problem with racing was I was always like over driving. I always had to like feel the car move around. Wasn't good at like just riding the limit like the pros do. I was good at the car control, but I was never good at feeling that limit. I almost had to go over it to feel where the car was. So when it rained, like that kind of like played to my strengths a little bit. And of course, if you raced in England, as I did for a long time, then it rained all the time. So you had plenty of practice.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. So last week we talked about Edmonds Top Rated, and now
Yeah.
that the dust has settled and you guys are regrouping, I've been seeing uh, a lot of chatter about the Top Rated awards, and rightfully so. I mean, we've talked a bit about what goes into those awards and the amount of testing and everything, and just the months of work. So it creates so much legitimacy to those awards. I saw, Jim Farley from Ford, Elon Musk, representing Tesla. I would say from Tesla, but who knows where he's
Probably from the
Mars.
Oval Office. It was quite funny because we saw Jim Farley, who should say, if you're not super close to the car industry, the CEO of Ford. Yeah, we've had him on the show earlier. Well, last year I should say now. Yeah, and Elon himself, Tesla sort of did a tweet because the Model 3 won our Edmonds Top Rated EV Car Award.
Yeah.
So Tesla did a tweet, and then we're waiting to see. But the thing is, like in days gone by, when Elon's like shared a tweet or an X or whatever it is, it's get like crazy numbers. And actually, because he now shares so much, actually,
Yeah.
it's not quite the impact that maybe it once had. But it's still, I think, I don't know, 2 million people have seen it or something, and it's kind of funny to watch, because we're kind of like thinking, where you can almost track because he's so public now. You can almost track where he is. So
Yeah.
it's my first tweet from the West Wing, so it's kind of fun. But yeah, it's going well. I mean, we're seeing a lot of we obviously track, and we have all this kind of fancy software that tracks all the mentions and how many people are talking about it, and the numbers are well up this year, which is great. Rivian kindly really started to get behind it, having won the EV Truck Award. Tesla, everybody's sort of look, we are, without wishing to sound arrogant, we are the sort of preeminent car shopping site in the country. So hopefully, if we give somebody an award, it means something. And there's obviously a lot of testing and a lot of sort of empiricism that goes into it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a nice thing to do. And from a consumer perspective, people using the site, we talked about this before. It's really these are the best cars on sale and start here. And if so, you're just wanting to get a shortcut to like let me just show me what you regard as the best, and I'll kind of like work backwards from there. Then it serves that purpose, and will do for the rest of the year. So no, it's been a good response and great for the team as well, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I think the response on it has been really good. Honda, as well. I saw their press release that went out. They've been chatting about it, and as they should, because they won overall with their Honda Civic.
Yeah, and actually, there's a nice reaction to that. I mean, you look at it; it's not like change these awards, and we see this on some other publications. So we say you could go for like a vehicle that is going to get tons of attention. And the reality is, the Civic is a car that I don't think many people bounce into the pub and I just bought a Civic, but actually it's just a car that hundreds of thousands of people buy. Everybody admires. People love it once that when they own it. So that'll be like a long tail. It hasn't got like hasn't set the world alight, and everybody's talking about it. But I think the feedback that we've got is I think a lot of people respect the fact that we've given it to a great car at 30 grand. It's not a ZR1 or it's not some sort of, fancy luxury car. It is a
Mhm.
really honest, really well executed, affordable family car. I think that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I think it was a good pick. I think it made sense. And like you said, the ratings sort of are what justify it, right? It performed
Yeah,
well everywhere.
I had a funny moment, like, because I would have driven it, but I hadn't spent that much time in it. 'Cause, we're a big team, and I leave a lot of this to the test team. But I spent a couple of days in it after we shot the awards and lived with it for a week. And you always had this sort of like little trepidation of like, oh God, did we get it wrong? And I spent a few days. I thought, actually, this is really good. And I thought, like, it's a family car for us. Yeah, not the most exciting thing in the world, but I thought this is basically everything that, this is kind of every car you need, really.
Yeah. Um, you had mentioned Tesla, so I wanted to talk about the Model Y. I just saw an announcement on the Edmunds site about pricing being announced for that. I'm not sure what the release date is, but you got your hands on one?
No,
And you
we
guys
are.
order one or?
We've ordered one. Yeah, there was a handful of people. I think they did a little thing in the UK, and it launched first in China. So I think what Tesla does is sort of stagger the production, particularly if they've still got a lot of inventory of the old Model Y. So if you want
Yeah.
an old Model Y, which is still pretty, still a good car. There's some amazing deals on that right now. So yeah, the new version is coming in March. We have ordered one. There's a launch edition for just over 60 grand, and then price will come down from there. That launch edition kind of gives you full self-driving and a little acceleration boost and a few other bits and pieces just to try and grab the attention of the early adopters. And obviously, we just like to get in and live with these things as much as possible. But it looks like a very sensible update. I mean, Tesla did a really good job with the Model 3 of taking a car that had been around since 2017, I think it was originally came out, and just giving it just enough of an update
Hmm.
to be really convincing. And, just looked at what was wrong and then fixed what was wrong. So, we know with the Model Y, the refinement's not that great. Some of the interior quality's not that great. The ride quality can be a bit iffy, particularly depending on how you specify it. And they seem to be focusing on those areas. There's a lot of people saying, hey, they've fixed it. Well, we haven't driven it yet, so let's hold fire on that. But
Okay.
when you look at what they've done, they've got laminated glass now. They've got a coating on the roof because there was a problem where the roof got so hot, the glass roof. So they're trying to address that. They seem to have, if it's like the Model 3, they'll improve the quality of the interior. Model 3 is a big leap forwards. And also, Model Y is the biggest selling car in the world, which is a kind of insane stat. So they've really learned how to build them and what works and what doesn't for them. So, the build quality we suspect will be good from the off. It's got this kind of Cybertruck-esque lighting treatment at the front if you're not
Yeah, you
watching
can
this
see
on
kind of the
YouTube.
light bar that's going on in the front
Yeah.
that I'm sure at night gives it a little bit of that Cybertruck look effect.
And they've done the same thing at the back. They've got like a single light bar, a bit like Porsche actually. It looks a little bit like what you see on a 911 or the Panamera or something like that, a Cayenne. And I think it's a lot to do with lighting technology that you can now, with the LEDs and stuff, you can now have that kind of smaller lighting
Yeah.
treatment that a few years ago you couldn't. It's Tesla's a weird company because they do some stuff to the Cybertruck, and you go, this doesn't feel like a sensible business decision.
Yeah.
And then they come out with this and the Model 3, and you're like, basically what you've done is done a heavy facelift of something which is way, way cheaper than starting from scratch. And you've just done enough to make it look different enough where people will turn up and say, I've got the new Model Y.
Yeah.
And then if you fix a lot of stuff that's wrong, the range is a bit better, quality's better, refinement's better, then they're going to be onto a winner. So we can almost like say now what it's going to be like based on the Model 3 and the Model Y we already own. But yeah, I think they've done a neat job.
In the US, does the Model Y outsell the Model 3 or is the
Oh
Model
yeah,
3 the
easy.
best selling?
Yeah,
Oh, it
yeah.
does.
Model Y. I mean, very comfortably. I mean, Model Y. Everybody buys SUVs, right? And
Yeah.
if you're a family, it does make more sense. It's a little bit more practical. Certainly, the first edition. I don't know. All of them have got like electric power folding rear seats now. You've got things like summon, so you walk up to the trunk, it'll automatically open. So there's just little details like that that they refined. You get a TV screen in the back, like a little 8-inch screen, like similar to what you do in the Model 3 and Cybertruck, so kids can watch YouTube, play games. My wife would hate that because we have a bit of a kind of thing about our kids just not watching screens on the back seat. And once it's like there and you can't. So it looks like they've done a nice job. They've done a great job with the Model 3. And, you know, Tesla these days,
This is
they
the old one on there.
that's the old one. Yeah, I think if you go to
Yeah,
the top, there you go, new Model Y.
there you go.
You know, Tesla really knows how to build cars these days. I saw a stat. I was looking at a stat. I think it popped up on Instagram. In the last year, Tesla built more cars than Audi, which is a crazy stat
Yeah.
when you think about it.
Also, because we saw a huge drop in Audi sales,
Yeah.
and they're revising their whole lineup. That's a discussion probably for another day. They just dropped off an Audi here, and I realize it's the one I've already driven, which I'm happy to drive. It was just we were supposed to get the Q6 e-tron, which really looks cool, and the interior's made some revisions. I'm interested in driving that, but something happened, and I don't know if they just overbooked it or the manufacturer needed it back for their own stuff, but it got delayed. So they were nice enough to drop off a car, but it's a Q8 that I've already driven, SQ8 that I've already driven. But listen, I'm not going to complain because somebody dropped off an SQ8 at my door and I get to drive it for a week. I mean, it's a great car to drive.
Yeah, they just got a new design chief Audi from Land Rover as well, so I'm kind of excited to see what he'll bring to the
Yeah.
table. But yeah, Model Y starts at 60 grand at the moment. That price will come down. You know, and it's kind of wrong to see Tesla as a luxury brand now. Really, they're competing certainly on price. They're competing with mainstream. You know, they are a mainstream brand. You know, but they've done that great job of staying aspirational. And the other thing that they do really well is they basically own the whole process.
Yeah.
So they do their own software, they do this, they do that, and you know that gives them some critical advantages as well. So, you
I,
know,
all of these press photos that they put out there, these cars with the white interior, and it looks good in the photos, but especially in an SUV, if you got kids, you got family, I can't imagine why you'd want a white interior.
I
Like,
just ordered a wide interior. So I've
of course
ordered
you
red
did.
with white. And the reason we did that is because it photographs well. But you're absolutely right.
It photographs well. Yeah, it
If
looks
this was
great.
my car, there's no way I'm having a wide interior.
No, no way. There's no way. And interesting because Tesla, this new Model Y, at least this launch edition one, it only comes in a handful of colors. And I want to say it's like white, silver, red, and gray. Black
Yeah.
isn't even on the menu, which I think is going to make, half the California buyers sad.
Yeah, I think it'll come. I think they're trying to give the launch edition a slightly different thing. We've gone for the
Yeah.
red one because it's going to stand out. But yeah, it's like, oh great, another silver car from Monochrome City. But
I mean, I guess they pick the colors that sell the most, but uh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, not a lot of options there.
the other big thing, of course, about it is still, I know like more and more brands are getting access to Tesla Superchargers,
Yeah.
but it is still that's still the single biggest reason for me to buy a Tesla. It's just so much easier than
You know,
pretty much everything
I
else on the market.
I finally took my truck, my Lightning, over to a Tesla Supercharger, to one of their charging networks, and there's one over here by me. There's like 8 Tesla chargers, and there was probably 2 available, and there's like a valet parker guy out there because it's like a lot like near a Trader Joe's or something, and I was pulling in and I was thinking, I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how my issue was the charger's not going to reach. The cable's not going to reach. And sure enough, it wasn't even close. It was 3 feet short. And I asked the guy, I was like, hey, I was just curious, like those of us with adapters, like what's going on? How do we what's your advice on charging over here? And he was like, there's one charger here. He goes, that's kind of next to it's like 1.5 parking spaces, and it gives you like a little extra room. It's not a handicap space, but it gives you extra room for like a wheelchair or access point or something. It's like if you use that spot instead of driving in the center, you drive to the right, and then you can access it. He goes, but that's the only spot you can do it in. And then so that didn't work. I couldn't charge there. And then I went around to like this hotel that had a bunch of them. And again, it was because they had like six of them lined up in front of you and then one of them lined up on the side. And you basically have to block one to use the other. So essentially, I had to block two Tesla chargers to charge it. Now, I did it early in the morning because I was literally doing it as an experiment to see if
Yeah.
this whole thing works. Because
You were
Ford
that
sent me the
guy.
charger, the adapter in
Yeah.
the mail, right? They said it's free. Here you go. I wanted to try it. So I went early in the morning. So there was one Tesla charging. I don't want to be the jerk who's like, I'm going to take up two charger spaces and
Yeah.
there's a line of cars waiting. And I had
And
charged
disappear for 4 hours.
yeah, and I just charged for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I got it to work. The cable is not long enough, and I just saw a company saying they're working on an extension cable, but somebody was saying they're water cooled, so this has to be very sophisticated on like how to the cooling and the cable works because it goes from the Tesla plug into the extension cable, then into your car, or into
Oh,
in my
geez.
case into an adapter. However, the cooling happens and whatever.
I don't fancy that with with a 250
And
well, not 250 in a Lightning, but the Tesla things will generally do up to about 250. Yeah.
it's like a
250 cool.
5 foot extension cable that you carry with you. And I think it's going to be at least $200, maybe $250 for
I don't. When you think about like, you're always told out you don't plug your fridge into an extension cable.
yeah.
I'm not sure I want to plug my Lightning into an extension cable into another cable. But this, I mean, we talk about this all the time. This is the problem, right? This is, and then you go to the pub and you're like, I tried to park my Lightning in a Tesla thing. It was a shambles. And then somebody else tells their mate, Marty knows cars. He came in, it was a shambles. So yeah, it'll get fixed, but they've now got all this negative publicity to shoo out the way before people start buying them. And I was just looking at. I know we're going to talk about the Hummer because I just drove that, and I was just looking at the Dodge. We're getting a Dodge Charger EV as well, and it's it's a ton of money. So we will. There's a lot of headwind at the moment, not to mention what the administration is going to do. So,
And listen, I maybe you can speak to this more than me, but I went to two popular areas here on the west side in California, so I expect the Tesla charger to be expensive, but it was like 69 cents a kilowatt. It seemed ungodly expensive.
I filled our Genesis up in Electrify America the weekend because we were just running late. Yeah, and it was like 20. It was like $30 for about just over 120 miles or something. And I was like, that's. I know you start equating it to gas, and the savings gone. So yeah, that's the other thing. If you're gonna fast charge, it's no cheaper than gas.
Yeah.
The way to save money is to charge at home overnight when you're on an off-peak cycle. Or you take advantage of what a lot of manufacturers are doing, which is say, free fast charging for 2 years or whatever. The problem with that is that's turning the fast chargers, which are supposed to be for occasional use, into like permanent charging solutions.
Yeah.
So that's been part of the problem. It's like, well, am I going to spend $50 charging at home all night? Or should I just go down the fast charger because Mercedes has given me this little tag and now it's free? So you go down and you have like a massive queue. And I was having this conversation with my boss at work and he was like, oh yeah, but like which Mercedes owner is going to like try and save $50 on this? And I said, well, me probably, because I grew up in Northern England and like the idea of wasting money, if somebody's giving you something for free, you take it for free.
Oh, absolutely.
It's always
Yeah.
like for me, it's like a psychology. I'm going to, even if I have to queue for 2 hours, like I'm saving $50 here.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was thinking about the Tesla charger and I was like, I got to try this at some point and see if the adapter works. And maybe if I'm on a road trip, I'll use it. And then I got an email from Ford going, we see you're in the disaster zone area, so we will refund you a charge. We'll refund your
Oh, wow.
charge
Oh,
to
that's
the end
good.
of the month, to the end of January 31st. Any charges you do, as long as you use the Ford Pass app, right? Like if you go
Yeah.
up and you just plug in and fill up, basically, if you will, using the Ford app, they will, and it goes through Ford's processing and shows up on your credit card as a Ford payment, they will refund it. I don't know if I'm technically in like the FEMA area to qualify, but I was like, let me try it. I got to try it anyway. And yeah, it cost me $50 to get a charge, like $49 and change, and it wasn't fully charged. It just, and you're right. Even in my apartment complex, which we have chargers, but we pay for them in our garages, so they're not public. They're public, meaning anybody in the complex can use them, but they're not accessible outside the the garages. We pay 32 cents a kilowatt. And I don't know. I guess it's okay. I don't know what other people pay outside of California, but uh, it was more than double that it was 69 cents a kilowatt at the Tesla charger.
Jeez. World's
Um,
gone mad. I'm trying to think what I pay. Don't know. But we could. It's a neat segue to talk about the Hummer because I did drive the Hummer. I did drive the Hummer last. I was trying to look at what I paid at home, but I can't find it now. It's yeah, it's about $30 to charge my car, whatever that. $30 for 60 kilowatts. So what's that? That's like 50 cents. Yeah, that's still
yeah.
quite. That's quite a bit. Um, yeah, so I drove the Hummer EV,
Yep.
EV SUV. I was actually taking some stuff over to go and you go and help somebody who's sadly affected by the fires. But it was what I was hanging around the office that was big enough. And I drove the truck at our test track, and I was like, the truck is really silly. Just the bed is stupidly small,
Yeah.
and it's got like 1,000 horsepower, and the whole thing just seems completely unnecessary. And I just wasn't a fan. And I expected the SUV to be a bit more the same. And then I got in, I thought, actually, this is pretty nice. It was in the rain. It was, through the kids in the back. It's huge. It's incredibly wide, but it has got a real character about it. You have this like little slit of a windscreen, which feels quite characterful, very sort of, very kind of utilitarian chic, and big trunk, big frunk as well. And I suddenly started to see the appeal of them. I can't imagine myself buying one.
Yeah.
Not for 100, well, I don't know, 100 grand to spend on a new car, but I wouldn't. I just can't imagine myself like them. But I actually started to think I think it's a much nicer product than the truck. It's got a slightly smaller battery. It's a little, the wheelbase is a bit shorter. It kind of makes more sense as an SUV than it does as a truck. And if you kind
Okay.
of in LA, it's a bit cumbersome just because it's so wide in particular.
I
It's
know,
so
but people
massive.
drive Raptors out here and they never go out in the dirt or anything.
No, but I think if you're living in an area where you're not in an urban center, then I can kind of see the appeal.
Okay,
It's a
so you
toy,
like
right?
the SUV a little bit more. Did we pull up the specs? Is it really physically smaller than
Yeah, I
the
think the wheelbase is
but
a
it's not
little bit smaller.
thinner. It still is wide.
Oh, it's still wide, yeah. It's
Yeah.
still super wide. It does that cool crab walk thing where the rear wheel steering kicks in and it can,
Yeah.
and everybody looks at, oh, that's a gimmick. And then I was trying to get out my way my house is configured. I have like a little parking space in front of the house, and there's a tree in front. So normally I have to kind of reverse up and faff around a bit. And this just put it into crab walk and out it went. So I kind of get that. It's charming. I like cars that are different. And it is like the little Tonka toy that you had as a kid. It's a grown up, those big plastic toys that my kids have still got now.
Yeah.
It's just a daddy version of that or a mummy version of that. It's really silly, but I kind of came away thinking, I kind of like this.
So
And it's
the
really
crab
fast.
walk mode is it, what do you have to do to engage it? Is it easy or is it like switching M modes on an M5 and you're gonna be there for 15 minutes trying to
No,
configure
you
the
just
mode?
flick a switch on the center console and away, and then it does its thing. And the SUV doesn't have the 1,000 horsepower the truck is. I think it's like this is the tri-motor. I think it's like 800 or something.
That's it?
But it's just really fast, and you have that proper sort of king of the road feel about you because it's just so big and so obnoxious in a way.
Yeah.
And I think the truck was the most inefficient EV we have ever tested, and
Yeah.
it's
I'm
about
not
ten thousand
surprised. It's
pounds.
10,000 pounds.
Yeah, and it just gets around it by having a massive battery. And if you just like excess, and it's true to the brand, right? Because Hummer was always about excess and Arnie in the 80s and everything else. But yeah, I liked it way more than I thought I would,
Yeah.
and in some ways way more than I thought I should, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. You remember when the Hummer was coming out and then people out here in California were so mad with the gas engine versions, and they were tagging them on dealer lots and vandalizing them. And I, I I think part of the issue now is like people see that Hummer name, and many don't even realize this is an electric vehicle, and I think people are still willing to vandalize it because they don't know what it is. They just see Hummer. They're like, "Oh, it's the Hummer. We hate those things. We're California. We hate these."
It's
And
a
they're gonna
real
flatten your
yeah, it's a
tires.
real sort of contradiction though, isn't it? Like a massively inefficient EV is and we're going to get around it by just having a massive battery. So
Yeah.
you're just going to use a ton of lithium, and we'll get around it that way. But
I
I
mean,
mean, it's basically this car. Let's face it, is the Silverado EV. It's the GMC truck EV. It's all those cars. It's basically GM's platform and batteries, and they just decided to spin a Hummer off it. But I kind of liked it, and I thought if I was going on like a family road trip, I
yeah.
thought says kids would love it. It'd be quite fun.
What kind of range does the SUV get compared to the truck? Do you recall?
I want to say
It's like
it's
300.
like in the 300, yeah, in the 300s. Literally range testing it. I think as we record this show, we are actually. I'm trying to work out what we did. If I could quickly look it up, what we did for the for
For
the
the truck?
truck. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think
We
it went. I didn't go too far. I didn't think it was okay simply because it's got a massive battery.
Well, that's what I was thinking. The range was decent, and I mean, it's an earlier version of what's going on with Silverado and the GMC EV trucks. I know those are performing well, but they're a little bit lighter. I mean, I think you guys tested that GMC at about 8,800 pounds compared to the Hummer is 10,000 pounds.
Yeah, it's. I know the Silverado EV broke our scales, and our scales are rated to like 8,500 pounds. So yeah, he did the truck did 390 miles on our range test, which
Yeah.
they claim the EPA's 329 did 390, which is really impressive, but it just has a massive battery.
Yeah,
So
it's just they just threw a big battery at it. I mean,
they
it's
just
not
threw a
like
big
it's the
battery.
smartest technology. In the world of EV, the EV technology is already moving so quickly. Like
Yeah.
batteries become more efficient, motors are getting more efficient. I think at CES there was whatever that company was that has that really tiny, super efficient motor that puts out like 650 horsepower, and it's like it's even smaller than the electric motor that uh what am I thinking of? Koenigsegg uses, and theirs was like pretty smart.
I'm just going to do that. I can tell you the consumption. So the most efficient car we've ever tested was a Hyundai Kona electric, which is 23 kilowatts, kilowatt hours per 100 miles, closely followed by the Hyundai Ioniq 6. By contrast, right at the bottom of my now 60 strong table, 2023 GMC Hummer EV, 58.7. So
It's
it
more
is
than double.
more, it is double. It is double, which would also be true more than double. Actually, getting on for triple, right? 23 versus
58.
57. 23 versus 58. That's 2.5 times. 1.5 times.
Two and a half
Two and
times.
a half times. It's been a long week. It's only Monday, but it's been a long week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's massive. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's also 100 grand, which is a lot
Getting
of
on.
money.
Sorry. Henry wanted to join us. Henry
Henry
the
being a
dog.
dog, if you can't see on
Henry
YouTube.
the dog. Yeah, that's all right. We're wrapping up anyway. He's just sitting down there and he's staring at me. He says, gotta get him.
How many dogs are you up to?
There's two, Henry and Toby. I don't know where Toby is. He's in the closet hiding somewhere, but yep. They love
I
my
have two.
truck because I have a huge center console and they can sit on it and
I have
stare out the
two.
window.
I have two guppies, and they're hard work. So
Yeah.
the dog's gonna have to wait.
Um, all right, what's next on the docket for
What's next coming up? We just driven the Forerunner. Hoping to try and get into that tomorrow. So that's kind of exciting. I think that's only happens once every decade.
yeah.
So we got a ton of content coming out on that. What else has happened? We did a range test. We're talking about the Chevy EVs. We range tested the GMC Sierra. That did 507 miles. Again, massive battery. You can do this if you have a massive battery. What else have we done? Just driven the Wagoneer S as well. Maybe we could talk about that next week. That's the GPV. I mean, people are still bringing out the EVs, right? It's still, we got the Jeep, we got the Charger EV as well. We got one of those coming. So interesting times. Tons of new EVs hitting the market. Also, a lot of good gas stuff out there as well.
We need to plan a discussion about the Silverado, sort of versus the Ford, because Chevy was a little later in the game compared to Rivian and Ford, but trucks sell so much, and I think that's an important part of their financials, of their money making, having something like that. But I'm not sure it's really moving the needle. I've seen a few on the road. I kind of want to get into how is that truck? Is that truck worth buying? Because truck is such a high volume thing. Even in the EV space, if they can get 10% of their sales to be EV trucks, 10% of the Silverado sales to be EV versions, that's huge. That would be a huge number. I don't know, somewhere around 70 or 80,000 vehicles. They probably sell 800,000 Silverados, right?
Yeah, they sell about six or 700,000, I think now. But yeah, we talked about maybe getting one of Ford's like product leaders on the show, which I think would be great, and maybe we can talk to some of the people responsible for these vehicles, because I think it's an incredibly interesting time, and we're seeing this divergence between like Ford that's just done an F-150 that's electric and had that first mover advantage, and then you've seen others that GM has come in and said, whole bespoke platform, we're going to spin all these vehicles off this own, and that has a lot of advantages, not least in packaging and things like that. And so, and then everybody's going backwards and saying, let's just do one body shape. I mean, if you talk, I bet Porsche now are winking, oh, we should have done a Cayenne that can fit a gas engine, then we could just bolt an EV motor into it and we'll do something that, but difficult for Porsche because they don't do compromise. So we'll see. But yeah, it'd be a good discussion for the future and which way is best.
Right. Okay. And I think this week I'll be connecting with Goldberg again, and we'll probably get into some of the Barrett-Jackson stuff and what's been going on with him as well. So, yeah, guys, thanks so much for listening. Check out Edmonds.com, of course, and follow us on social media. And there's always some fun stuff going up on there. Always trying to get some new some new kind of fun things happening. Some stuff I've been posting from Barrett-Jackson. It was an exciting event, and I you get so caught up in the event and you forget to take photos and videos, and then the last day you're trying to run around and grab some shots of some of the cool cars. Although when I did walk through, it wasn't for sale, but there was a company on a display, and they had a 93 Mustang Cobra that was all original with like 7,500 miles on it. And it was nice to see that car kind of front and center and display, like almost part of the entrance. You don't get to see a lot of those, but yeah, totally cool.
Sounds good.
All right, we're gonna wrap things up. Thanks, guys. Till next time, keep the air in the spare and the bag in the wheel.